Hello everyone, this is Derek with Reef Automation. Today I'm going to have another top 10 here on my top 10 Apex gear. We're going to go through specifics on why I think they are the top 10 and why they are in the order that they are in. So let's get started with number 10. So number 10 is the auto feed system, or the AFS. The AFS requires an Aquabus cable and only an Aquabus cable. It does have a power input as well, but there is no need to use that as the Aquabus cable does everything for you. It must be programmed in the Apex system, and it's very easy to program. You just program it as a feeder, which pops up right when you plug it in, and you can program it to feed as many times a day as you want, and you can actually program it to spin the drum multiple times during that feeding. It's very versatile, very easy. I use it on all my tanks and have pellets inside, and it works really well. A couple things to note about the AFS is it is a little loud, so when it does come on, you will hear it. So you definitely don't want it to come on during the middle of the night. Generally, of course, you're going to be feeding during the day, so that won't be an issue. But just note, it is a little bit loud, so if you're going to be feeding a lot during the day, just be prepared for a number of annoyances with the sound coming out of this. One thing that I always recommend with all auto feeder systems is to put the gel pack inside the drum, so that way when you have pellets, moisture won't get into there and cause the pellets to clump up together. So I always recommend putting a moisture pack inside the drum on these. So let's move on to number 9. So number 9 is going to be the wave pump made by Neptune. Now, one thing about the wave pump that you need to know is it does require a one link. Now, that one link can come from an EB832 or can come from a one link module, but it does have to have a one link. It will not work without it, and that is very important to note that if you are using a wave pump, that indeed you have a one link connection. The cable that comes with this is very long. I would venture to believe it's about 10 feet long, so you can get a one link just about anywhere with these guys. So a couple things to note about them is they are extremely powerful. I tried to use a wave pump in my 100 and had to turn this thing down to about 5% because I felt it was just way too powerful. It is more oriented for larger tanks or tanks that are much wider or far away from the corals. So just keep in mind if you are going to purchase one of these, they are very powerful. They're a little bit large. They're not too big, but just note they are a little bit on the bigger side. They have the ability to pivot and go up and down very easily, so you can position these pretty much anywhere. One thing that's really neat about the wave pumps is if you remove them from water, they automatically shut off. Also, if they were to fall or if anything was to get inside them and clog them, you can get an alert on your Apex, which is really nice. So it's got a lot of great features. Just note that, like I said, it's very powerful, so don't put it in a tank that's small or else you'll probably end up returning it. So just keep that in mind. Other than that, I find that the wave pump is a fantastic piece of equipment from Neptune, and I highly recommend it. Number 8 would be the PM2. Also, we can throw in the PM1 with this slide. The PM2 does salinity, whereas the PM1 will do your ORP and pH. What's nice about the PM2 is it gets powered by Aquabus, so it only needs Aquabus from an EB8 or an EB832 or an EB4. So it's just an Aquabus cable. It doesn't need power. It will do your salinity, like I said, the PM2. It'll also do temp, and it will also do breakout box. It also has an I/O connection. So if you ran out of I/O connections or you wanted to add breakout box to your system, you would just buy a PM1 or a PM2. Now, the PM1, like I said, does ORP and pH, while the PM2 does your conductivity or salinity. The recommendation is if you use a PM1 or a PM2, that you connect the temperature probe as well. That way you can get temperature compensation for both your pH or your salinity. Neptune also makes a PM3, which is your dissolved oxygen module. However, I find that the dissolved oxygen module is quite expensive at about $800 for the dissolved oxygen device. However, it does have the same communication. It has Aquabus I/O and temperature. So you can use a PM3 if you wanted to monitor your dissolved oxygen. However, like I said, I find it to be a little bit expensive for what we're trying to accomplish with dissolved oxygen. So let's move on to number 7. Number 7 would be the dose and or the DDR combination. The dose is a fantastic piece of equipment. It has 2 heads, which does dosing for your elements. A couple things to note about the dose is that it does not come with your standard RO tubing or the John Guest connections, so you will need to get some type of adapter if you wish to use the John Guest connections. There is the ability to push them in there and tighten them up, and it works relatively well, but I recommend getting the adapters that most companies sell for the dose. One thing about the dose, it's only 2 heads. It's not a 3 head, it's not a 4 head, obviously. So just bear in mind if you're going to be dosing 2-part and you're going to be dosing magnesium, you're going to need an additional dose. That's the only con that I have to the dose, is that I wish it came in a 4 or 3 head version instead of a 2 head version, because most people aren't dosing 2 elements, they're dosing 3, 4 elements at a time. So just be wary of that. Furthermore, they can be loud. So if you're going to use these for, let's say, an automatic water change, just be aware that they do have a tendency to be a little bit on the loud side. Now the dose is pretty cool. You can power it with the 1-link, which is the same as the wave pump as we mentioned. If you plug in the 1-link, you do not need to plug in power and you do not need to plug in the Aquabus. However, on the flip side of that, if you use the Aquabus, you must power it with the power connection that comes with it, which is a 24 volt transformer. So just be aware, if you are going to be doing the Aquabus, you need power, and if you're going to be doing the 1-link, you do not need power or Aquabus. Now the DDR is a separate item which you can purchase separately, or you can purchase as a combination kit with most companies out there. The DDR has 2 optical sensors in there which will monitor when the liquid gets low and will alert you if the liquid gets low. It plugs directly into the dose. It cannot be plugged into the Apex directly. You must have a dose with it in order for it to work. Furthermore, do not put any type of alcoholic type liquid in there, such as vodka or, for instance, the Red Sea NO-PO4, the NOPOX, because the DDR will crack. I've seen it multiple times. Please only put calcium, magnesium, aminos, such, nothing with alcoholic content in it whatsoever, or it will crack. One thing that I'm not a fan of the DDR is that it is a dual vessel, and the dual vessel does not come apart, meaning if you need to empty out one of the vessels, you need to empty out both of them. That's the only thing I don't like about them. If you have to clean them, for instance, you have to empty out both of them. You cannot split them, and that is my only, I guess, con with the DDR, is that you have to do so. Other than that, they work really well together, and I find them to be a good piece of equipment for your Apex if you're just trying to dose. There's a lot of options in the programming side that some of the other dosers don't give you. You can also turn it off if something is happening, which is really nice. You can actually turn off the dose if the optical sensor was to get low, which you can't do in most systems out there. So I'd give the dose, I'd say about a 6, 7 out of 10. But this is probably one of the better pieces of equipment that Neptune makes. So number 6 is the core pump. Now the core pump is going to be made in 2 different versions. Right now it's the 15 and the 20. Now the 15 requires a 1-link cable, such as the wave pump, as I mentioned. The core 15 will not work without a 1-link cable. So just be aware, if you buy the core 15, you must have a 1-link connection for it to work. That is how it's powered, and that is how the communication is done. Now the Core 20, however, is a standalone pump, meaning it'll work just like any other return pump without an Apex. However, it does have an Aquabus cable and a power connection that must be made. And if you make the Aquabus cable to your Apex, then you can control it. If you don't plug in the Aquabus cable, it works just like a normal standard return pump. This has a lot of features such as the wave pump does, such as when it doesn't receive any water, you can get an alert. If it gets clogged, you can get an alert. If it goes over temperature, you can get an alert. Both the Core 15 and the Core 20 have the same form factor. They look exactly the same. They fit exactly the same. The 20 does 2,000 gallons per hour, and the Core 15 does 1,500 gallons per hour. It has a 3/4 inch output, and it has a inch and a quarter, I think, or an inch and a half input. If you're using those to their strongest output, then you'll get the strongest output out of it, meaning if you use the larger tubing or pump or piping that it's requesting, you'll get the full gallon per hour out of it. However, of course, if you were to reduce the couplings or reduce the piping on these, you will get much less gallons per hour out of it. It is a DC pump. It's extremely quiet. It has almost virtually no hum whatsoever. I don't hear it, period. I don't hear any vibration from it. I use the Core 20 on my 100-gallon reef tank. I think it's a fantastic pump. Um, so yeah, this is the Core series of pumps from Neptune. And let's move on to number 5. Number 5 is going to be the Apex Solenoid Valve. Now, what I love about the solenoid valve is it's very versatile. You can plug this into the 24-volt input of the Neptune, and you can control it to turn on and off RO reservoirs. You can have it programmed to turn off and on calc reactor inputs. You can have it control your RODI system. I have about 4 of these on my system and have yet to have one fail. I've had many of them over the years, and I've never really had any issues with these. I think they're extremely strong. I've rated these at about 80 psi with no issues. What's nice is you can program them into the Apex, and therefore you can program them to turn off and on using the 24-volt the output of the FMM or out of the output of an EB832. They just plug right in with their 2-port 24-volt. I like how it's white. It's easy to mount to the wall, for instance, if you had to mount it. It's very quiet. It's not a loud solenoid valve. I find these to be extremely versatile, and they're not very expensive. I think they're $20, $25, and you can do quite a bit with them. So this is the Apex solenoid valve. Number 4 is going to be your flow monitoring kit, or what we call the FMK. Now, the next couple slides I'm going to show you use what's called the FMM. The FMM is very versatile. You can plug in a multitude of different things, such as the solenoid valve, as I just showed you, such as the flow meters, which I'm showing you right now. And you can plug in optical sensors and you can plug in leak sensors to the FMM. What's nice about the FMM or the FMK kit is it comes with 2 sensors and it comes with an additional larger sensor for your return, all in one box. So you save yourself some money by getting this kit. Now, the one thing I don't like about this kit is that it comes with one pair of unions for the larger flow sensor. However, it does not come with unions for the smaller sensors. I choose to put unions on all of my sensors so that way I can clean them if there's any issues with them. So I'm not sure why they didn't include unions with the smaller sensors, but that's my only concern with these flow sensors is that I recommend putting unions on the sides of them. One thing to note about the flow sensors is they come with a very long cable. So if you're going to be using this, I would highly recommend you put the FMM farther away because I think this comes with about a 25-foot cord. It's quite long, and I end up having to roll these up into tight knit zip tie pieces that are just ridiculous because they're so long. So just be aware that this comes with a very long cable. The flow sensors work really well. Just note that the smaller flow sensors are for smaller gallon per hour. The larger flow sensors are for larger gallon per hour. So make sure you put the correct flow sensor to the correct piping or the correct tubing, and make sure that you're putting the right flow sensor to the correct amount of gallon per hour. Otherwise, it will not read it. There's also an arrow on each one of these. Make sure you put the flow the correct directions, or otherwise you're going to get a negative flow on your charts when you open up your Apex. So moving on to the third of my top 10 is going to be the leak detection kit, which also uses an FMM. The FMM can be used for, like I said, both of these. However, the leak detection kit comes with 2 leak sensors. I find that the leak detection kit or leak sensors in general are one of the most important things to have on your Apex. And what's nice about this device is it comes with 2 leak sensors automatically right out of the box. So it's quite simple to just add a couple leak sensors or add a flow sensor or add whatever you want to this, optical sensors, for instance. And it's nice in a little kit and it saves you a bit of money. So the leak detector kit, or the LDK, is going to be number 3. Number 2 is going to be your Energy Bar 832. Now, typically when you buy an Apex, you're going to buy an Apex system and it comes with an 832. However, if you're going to be adding this on to an existing Apex system, I think the 832 is a fantastic upgrade to an EB8. Not only does it give you 8 outlets, but it also gives you 3 1-link ports, which we determined are required for like a wave pump or that of a dose if you want to just run one cable, and that of the Core 15. It also comes with 3 Aquabus cables and 2 24-volt ports, which are for the solenoid or for like a P-ump or some type of pump that you want to plug into. Now, the one thing about the Energy Bar 832 that I don't like is that it only has 3 Aquabus cables. Now, the older EB8 had 6, and now they have reduced it to 3, which again, when you're daisy chaining a lot of things, it's not a problem, but when you need to add a number of devices directly to your Energy Bar, having 3 is kind of cumbersome. So I liked having the ability to plug all of my devices into the EB8, but now with the Aquabus ports being 3, just be aware of the fact that you have a reduced amount of Aquabus ports if you're upgrading from an EB8. Now, another thing that's nice about this is it has an outlet status LED, so it actually tells you when the outlet is on and off, which is fantastic. The EB8 did not provide that, and you would never know if an outlet was on or off. What's nice about this one is it actually tells you if the outlet is on or off, which I think is really cool. So this would be number 2 on my list of must-haves in your Apex system. Now, number 1 should not be a surprise to anybody, but number 1 is, of course, the Apex or the Neptune Trident. Now, the Trident I own, I have reviewed, and I've also had it on my must-have number 10 automation system as number 1. I think this is probably the best piece of equipment to date for your reef tank. If you can afford it, this is going to be the best thing that you can have on your tank. While it monitors alkalinity, which is the most important, it also monitors your calcium and your magnesium. I find it to be a breath of fresh air when I don't have to worry about what my alkalinity and calcium is every day. I don't have to measure it, it just does it automatically. I forgot the days when I had to measure alkalinity on a daily basis. Now it just does it for me, and I find it to be exceptional in what it does. Now, there's a couple things about the Trident. It could be hooked up very similar to that of the Dose, where it has a 1-link. It also has an Aquabus and power. The same thing can be said about the Trident in terms of hookup. It must be either Aquabus and power or the 1-link by itself. One thing to also note about the Trident is you have to replace the reagents, and depending on how many tests you're doing, the reagents can become quite costly. At $45 a box, that will typically last you 2 months if you're testing 4 times a day. If you're testing more than 4 times a day, which I'm testing 12 times a day, I'm more or less replacing this every 3 weeks or so. And it can become quite costly if you're going to be using this to test multiple times a day. I find testing multiple times a day is great for Trident controlled dosing with a dose, which I've done some videos on as well. But this is definitely number 1 of Apex's or Neptune's devices, and I believe it's going to be probably going to be number 1 for quite a long time unless someone comes out with something to compete with it, which I don't foresee that happening. I hope that Neptune comes out with another device to test multiple parameters, with the exception of calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity. There's many companies out there that are coming out with it, so I hope that Neptune follows suit. So anyway, I just wanted to give you my top 10 Apex devices and how to hook up each of them. And if you're interested in how to program each of them, I have more likely did a video on how in which to program each one. And if you like the video, please make sure that you hit the like button below with thumbs up. And also, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. I am going to be giving one of these guys away when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So please note that the more subscribers we get, the more chances you have to win some stuff at my live streams, which are every week. So thank you for watching. I hope this was informative. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section below. I hope you have a great day.